G'day, Joe here, Lever & Son Pianos, 150 Paynham Road, Evandale. A short while ago, we did a video just highlighting what we do when we refurbish a grand piano, which we got great feedback from. However, some people said, great, like fantastic video, but what do you do to an upright piano? So it's a very similar process. So today I'm just going to go through that process, same process, refurbishing what we do with our refurbished Japanese upright pianos. And again, when we talk about vintage Japanese pianos, same as with grand pianos, it's the same with uprights, predominantly 1970s, 80s and into the early 90s. Great period for Japanese pianos, all made in Japan, primarily out of a place called Hamamatsu in Japan, where the original Kawai and Yamaha piano factories were. So let's get into what we do when we refurbish an upright Japanese piano. So here we have two pianos, a Kawai and a Yamaha. This Kawai is very early 70s, about 1971, I think. And this one here is a Yamaha U3, very typical piano that we sell. And that specific U3 is a U3H, off the top of my head, roughly 1978. So quite similar eras. So obviously, let's start with this Kawai. This is typically how they come in. So you have little nicks and marks and scratches around the edges here. We have a missing piece of veneer here. What's the first thing we do? We take it apart. So pianos are very easy to take apart. They come apart in 4 or 5 different panels. That's the lid. That's the top panel. The next panel is this, which is called the fall, as in it falls. So that's why that's called the fall board. Music desk is that little bit on the fall board. Key rail, we have cheeks, so those two are the cheeks, and that is the front rail. They can come off as well. Down here is the bottom panel. So side panels, bottom rail, pedals, etc. That's the cabinet. So we have already polished that piano. That's one we prepared earlier. So that piano has been done. So how do we get this piano here, where it's got nicks and marks and scratches, dull bits broken off, to that standard there, which is basically ready to go out to the showroom and sell? There's 3 products that we use primarily. Most of the products we use for this era of Yamaha and Kawai, modern pianos, I would say, predominantly automotive polishes. So we have 3 predominantly that we use. So this is an extra cut automotive cut and polish. Cut and polish is a polish. It has small pieces of sand in it that act as an abrasive. So it essentially takes part of the finish off. In doing that, you leave fine indentations when you use it, just because of the nature of the fact that it has sand in it. This one here is used just to get all the grime off it, basically, and get it back to a flat finish. We then use this product here, which is less cutting action, but still has a tiny bit of cutting action. That polishes a fraction more. And then we finish it off with 3M hand glaze, which, as I said in the previous video, is actually meant for fiberglass boats, but works very well on polyester pianos. So they're the products we use. We also use a high-speed buff as well at the end if we need to, and that puts a real shine on it. And using those 3 products in stages transforms the piano from that to that. So that's polish work. We do all the brass work as well. So the brass work is, we actually use the extra cut as well. So we use the extra cut. We use a lot of steel wool. So steel wool to clean the brass work. Good old-fashioned brasso, we use that as well. So that's all the aesthetic side of it. Cabinet, all the cabinet that you see in the brass work. Right, that's that. Next part is the piano mechanism. So this section here is what's called the piano action. Piano action is held in usually by 2, 3 or 4 action stands, which are these sections here. So the actions, I've already taken 2 bolts off to make this quicker, but the action is held in by the action stands and action bolts, which are these. So they simply unscrew. Sometimes there's screws underneath as well, but this one doesn't have. And the action leans forward and lifts out. So that is the motor of the piano. The piano action in an upright piano is made up primarily of 3 components. You have this component here, which is that component there, and that is what's called a whippen. The hammer is the second component, so the hammer assembly, and last, third part component in the action is the damper assembly. So when we're refurbishing that action, most of the time we will take every component off. So it all comes off 88 notes times 3. So you can do the maths, 260 odd components all laid out. We check everything. Sometimes we have to replace, so let's look at the hammer assembly, for example. We might have to replace this. This might be breaking, so we'll replace the bridle tape. So sometimes this cushion might be worn, we replace the cushion. Whipping assembly, we replace this spiral spring. Sometimes the back check felt. Check all the center pins, all these center pins, so they're moving freely and not loose. And damper, same deal. We might check, there's not much to a damper mechanism, but we check the felts. Sometimes we replace the felts. This spring, that center pin, back check, box cloth, felt. So that's the mechanism, and then theoretically it's all put back together. Once everything's checked over, everything's reassembled and it's put back in the piano. And then it's, again, same as a grand piano. Once it's in the piano, it's all regulated, which is a series of mechanical adjustments once you've done all your inspection and repairs, just to make sure that it mechanically works correctly. So the next step is the keyboard. So the keyboard on a modern piano, 88 notes. Anything before about 1940 is 85 notes. The key itself, that is the key. There's usually not a lot to do with Japanese pianos in relation to the keyboard. Sometimes you have to replace the balance rail felt in the key, not often. Sometimes leads, the lead at the end, which is the weighting of the key. Sometimes you replace those, again, not often. Because the part of the piano that is touched and human error, like kids can smash the keys and things with toys and things like that, sometimes you have to replace the actual key top. So here's the key top is that. So that's just a plastic key top. Once upon a time they were ivory. We no longer put those on pianos for obvious reasons, but yeah, so that's a brand new key top. Oh, I managed to find the same one. So that is the actual key. If we take a section of keys out here, let's take a little section out so I can see. So if we take a section of keys out, you can see how that's filthy dirty because we haven't touched this one yet underneath. All this done, so we'll clean all that out eventually. There are, same as a grand piano, 3 felts: front rail felt, balance rail felt and paper washers, and back rail felt. So those felts, same as a grand piano, we have various sizes of front rail felts ranging from 3 through to, what are they, 7. So we'd look at what felt that is. It's actually quite a thick one. That'd be almost maybe 5 or something, 6. But they compress over time. So we may replace those. They rarely, again, I think we spoke about it with the grand, they rarely deteriorate. Sometimes they're eaten by insects. What they do is they do go hard over time. So when the key goes down, it like thumps. So sometimes we'll just replace them just because it's a bit noisy, the keyboard. So balance rail felt is these 2 scenarios. So small felt washers and paper washers here. So the balance rail felt, what that does is alters the height of the key. So let's alter one. So say we've got the keys here, they're all level. If we put some under here, see how now it's taller? So the balance rail felt and paper washers and felt determine the height of the key. So if you've got a piano and it's got a low key, all it is just that usually. It's just the felt is either deteriorated and gone or the paper washers flattened out or something. So that's a very simple mechanism. You rarely have to replace the back rail felt. So once all that is done, we've got to the stage where, so I guess we, at this point in time, we've talked about the cabinet, the brass work, we've talked about the piano action, we've talked about the keyboard, actual keys itself and the keyboard felts and key bed. About the only thing left is the pedal mechanism. So pedal mechanism in an upright, very, very simple. It's just a rod and lever system. So if you can imagine, the rods carry on up to those levers, and that's how they work. So very, very simple system. So we just check all that. Again, then it all goes back together and we put it out on the showroom floor and hopefully you buy it and we deliver it. Obviously I could go into a lot more depth, but that's just a bit of a snapshot what we do refurbishing a Japanese or any piano really, upright piano. Thanks for listening.